Today I want to share with you the top books that I read for church leaders in the last year. A bunch of sermon prep. I'm headed to meet with Corey. Cruising around on the scooter. I'm ready to be done with it.
Minute to break.
Hey everybody, today I want to give you my top 3 books that I read in 2018, which was last year at the time of the recording of this video. Now these books are not specifically youth ministry books, but they're books that I think have huge implications for you if you're a leader, if you're a church leader, or if you're a student pastor. I don't know about you, but I'm always looking for recommendations for great books, and so I thought that this would be helpful. I also thought it'd be really boring if I just made a video of me reading a book or listening to an audio book, and so I thought I'm just gonna talk about it. Now these are books, some of them released in 2018, some of them that's just when I happened to read them. Anyway, let's get to it. Top 3 books in no particular order. Number 1 is called Didn't See It Coming by a guy named Carey Nieuwhof. This book has huge implications for anybody who's a church leader, and I want to encourage you, plead with you, make time in your schedule to read this book. This book is talking about super common things that almost everybody faces in their time in church ministry, but most of these things, like, we don't see them coming, but if we're not careful, when they hit us, they cause big problems in our lives. And so even if you feel like you're in a really healthy spot in ministry, I would highly recommend reading this. This is for a 20-year-old or a 30-year-old or a 40-year-old or 50 or 60, wherever you're at in ministry. This book is vulnerable. It's super practical, super honest, and super helpful for anybody who leads in a church ministry context. It's about 8.5 hours on Audible. And anyway, speaking of Carey Nieuwhof, by the way, he also hosts one of the best podcasts for church leaders in the world. Carey Nieuwhof's Leadership Podcast. If you don't already listen to it, you should check that out. That was a bonus. Book number 2 that I want to give you today is called The Compound Effect by a guy named Darren Hardy. Now, this is not a book specifically designed for church leaders, but it talks about some principles that are true for everybody that have huge implications for being successful, whether it's in church leadership, whether it's as a parent, as a husband, as a wife, as whatever you're doing. The principles in here we're going to apply across the board. It's a quick read, only 5 hours on Audible, and I loved this book. It was inspirational to me, and it's really the concept of how small things can make an exponential impact in your life, and that's a concept a lot of people have talked about, a lot of people have written books about, people preach sermons about this, but this was like the best handling of it that I've seen so far in my life of 40 years, and so it was really inspiring for me, really helpful for me, really challenging for me. I'm actually going to be rereading it again this year. It was so good. Number 3, Irresistible by Andy Stanley. This book is controversial and it's awesome. Now, whether you're an Andy Stanley fan or not an Andy Stanley fan, I would urge you to read this book. There's some super important stuff in this book that I believe that every church leader in this generation needs to read. If you care about reaching people who are far from God, if you care about unchurched people, this book is important. It's going to help us be more effective at loving and leading people who are far from God towards Jesus. And if you disagree with Andy on it, or if you think you disagree with him, first you should read it, because I've seen a lot written about this book that was clearly written by people who didn't actually read the book, so they misinterpreted what he said based on a tweet that they saw or something like that. So check out this book. I thought it was good. It's going to be helpful for you. I think it's going to be challenging for anybody who reads it. And so whether you come out being, I 100% agree or only partially agree, I think this book will make you a better leader and a better pastor and a better youth pastor. So that's my top 3 books, but I also want to give you 2 bonus books. I know, kind of weird, but these 2 are specifically focused on teenagers, and so if you're a youth pastor, I believe you would be very wise to read these. These would be super, super helpful for you. So number 1 is called Your Teenager Isn't Crazy by Jeremy and Jerusha Clark. This is more geared for parents, but this has so much information. It's packed with great content, great information. They did lots of research to put this book together. So if you're a parent of a teenager, about to be a parent of a teenager, I would invest the time to read this book. If you're a youth pastor, it'll help you tremendously at helping parents. It'll help you at understanding where teenagers are at and be more effective at working with them, ministering to them, leading them. Great book. Your Teenager Isn't Crazy, super helpful for me. And then the second one second bonus book is called Meet Generation Z. This is by a guy named James Emery White, and it is more ministry focused. But if you are a pastor who cares at all about reaching the next generation, I believe this book is going to be super helpful for you. It gives lots of insight into Generation Z. There's a lot of talk about millennials these days, but we're on to Generation Z. The millennials are getting old. Generation Z is coming up. Anybody who's 20 or under as of the year of about 2019, they're in Generation Z, and they're different than millennials, and there's a lot of key and important things that are in this book. And so kind of like the Irresistible book, if you care about reaching the next generation, this book will be super, super helpful for you. So anyways, there's my 5 recommendations. Hopefully those are helpful for you. And here's what I'm asking for you guys. If you're a reader, I would love to hear your thoughts on what are the best books that you've read recently, maybe in the last year, maybe in the last few months. I'd love to hear your thoughts, because again, I'm always looking for great recommendations for great church leaders books, any books really. So put your thoughts in the comments and tell me why you liked what you liked. I would appreciate it big time. Hey, have a great week, and I will see you tomorrow.